Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Before I begin this video, just wanted to make a few notes. So it's been a week since I got my Twitter account suspended. Um, I was I was being trolled by a few people, and they baited me into saying anti-LGBTQ stuff. And once I said those things, they reported my account, and my account got suspended. So, firstly, just that's strategic. I want to give them that. Before I got suspended, the people I was fighting with, they were taking screenshots of my videos, and they were saying things like, how I sound boring and whatnot. Um, so I'm gonna be the first one to admit, yeah, I do sound boring. I do stutter in my videos. I do mumble. I do murmur. I can't help it. That's just how it is. Okay, so yeah. Now starting off with the topic of the video. Um, so as the title suggests, the topic of this video is how I had to block all of my Muslim friends on Facebook. Um, the reasons being, um, Facebook, the Muslim friends on my Facebook account, there was a pattern of them exposing their sins. They were posting videos and photos and other content of them living very sinful and openly haram lifestyles. And another thing was that some of these Muslim friends that I had that adopted this lifestyle, they used to actually be religious, and that's what kind of got to me. Some of them were much more religious than I could ever be, and they turned. It's like I was witnessing a literal spiritual suicide among them. You know how they gradually abandoned their Islamic identity and how they abandoned their Muslim cultural identity. That's the thing about um, having social media. You see a side of Muslims that you never thought that they had before. And it comes as a shock, it comes as a disappointment. The ones that I thought that were good Muslims, it's like they either turned bad or they always had this lifestyle with them. They had, it was, what's the term? They were two-faced. So they acted quote religious or semi-religious or whatnot, or just normal, just being a normal Muslim. And then online they were completely whitewashed, completely secularized, completely liberalized. Seeing them have a different side, as I said, it's just a shock. It's disappointing, and you do lose sleep when you see this stuff, because these images and videos and content that they post, it sticks with you. There's many Muslim friends on my Facebook account that didn't become whitewashed, that didn't have another side to them. But the thing is, I didn't want to take a chance. I had to block them off. I didn't want to take the chance of seeing them possibly become whitewashed and overly westernized. I didn't want to take the chance of falling into, depression when seeing them, um, just abandon their Islamic identity. Like, some of my Muslim friends, the ones who turned bad or the ones who always were bad on the side, the content they posted is exactly the same as what my non-Muslim friends on Facebook posted. And that's an issue. It's, seeing that slow, gradual spiritual suicide, seeing how so many of my Muslim friends, how they appeared 5, 10, 15 years ago, and seeing them now, it's such a shame how they abandoned their dignity and honor and respect that Islam bestows upon every Muslim. They had all that, and they abandoned it. Seeing how they changed for the worst, seeing how they were good Muslims at one time, and then you see how there is a slow spiritual suicide, how their lifestyle slowly changes. This thing, it drags you with them. Because that's the thing about Muslims, we're all, when we see another Muslim sin, it affects us too. And seeing them, just change their lifestyle for the worst, it affects you as well. Seeing all that affects you. It plays with you, unfortunately. It's disappointing, it's sad, it depresses you, it stresses you out. It can mess you up psychologically too. Because you never think, first, you never think Muslims would do, these openly sinful things. And secondly, you would never think that the good Muslims would ever resort to this kind of lifestyle. Seeing this so many times on my Facebook account, how I had so many Muslim friends and how they changed, it put me into a spiritual crisis. I was getting angry that, how can this happen? They were good Muslims, how can they change for the worst? I got angry at Muslim countries for being so corrupt that it causes so much immigration of Muslims to Western countries. And what happens is, unfortunately, many times these Muslim immigrants or the offspring of these Muslim immigrants, they lose their Islamic identity. So this was taking a toll on my faith. The images and videos and content, as I said, it sticks with you. You see it when you try to sleep. You see it randomly pop into your head and it just ruins your day. Many of my Muslim friends, they became doctors, lawyers, engineers. They achieved master's degrees and they achieved PhDs, or they're currently doing their PhDs. Seeing them so smart and educated and intelligent, but then also losing their Islamic way of life, their Islamic identity, their Muslim cultural identity. Like, it's just a dagger in the heart. I mean, they're clearly so smart if they're achieving all of this, but at the same time, it's contradictory because they act and behave in an openly sinful way. So no Muslim is perfect. Okay, no, you are an idiot if you think perfect Muslims exist. But you're also an idiot if you try to use that excuse of not being perfect just so you can openly live a sinful lifestyle and show it to everyone on social media. We all sin. Every Muslim is sinful. But there's lines that you're just not supposed to cross. And even if you do cross them, we're not supposed to show it off on Facebook and other social media platforms. Many times on Facebook, you know how it is. You go from profile to profile out of curiosity or interest or just boredom. You do profile hopping. Um, if my Muslim friends were not exposing their sins, then their Muslim friends were. So if I'd go onto the profile of my Muslim friend and I would go and I would see their friend list, or I would see who would comment on their videos or photos, and I would, click on their profiles, they were the ones who were sinning. My Muslim friends weren't. If they weren't, then their Muslim friends would. Their Muslim friends will be posting content of them, drinking alcohol or going to bars and nightclubs. It's so unfortunate, the amount of Muslim men who I came across on Facebook, either on my own personal account, my own personal friends, or their Muslim friends. There was an unfortunate amount of them who had themselves pictures of themselves or videos of themselves drinking alcohol, doing drugs, kissing or hugging their non-Muslim girlfriends. I mean, you have a Muslim name. You come from a Muslim country. Like, where is that respect? You don't respect yourself, clearly. If you post all of this online on Facebook and other social media platforms, you're supposed to hide your sins in Islam. You can't show them off. Then I would come across, I don't have very many Muslim female friends on Facebook. But I would come across Muslim women on Facebook, from profile hopping. And I knew some of these Muslim women. That's the sad thing. Like, I knew some of them. I knew some of them how they were religious. More religious than I could ever be. Their religiosity would put me to shame. And I would see similar things as what many sinful Muslim men would post. The most glaringly obvious when it comes to sinning for Muslim women is that they show off their body parts. Like, I don't understand what's the point of having a profile picture where it's zoomed in so closely on your chest and you're wearing a push-up bra, or you're wearing something very low cut that shows off your cleavage. Like, their chests would be on it's on full on display. And then there's also photos of them wearing very tight and short shorts or pants where you can see the outline of their vaginas. Now, you all know where I stand on a woman's clothing. I have 2 videos on this. I don't believe hijab is mandatory. I've done 2 videos on this. One was literally about hijab, the other one was about ghira and the youth and tabarruj. You all know where I stand on hijab. I know I've proven it's not mandatory. The most arousing parts of a woman, as I've mentioned repeatedly, is a woman's chest, is a woman's vagina, is a woman's bottom, is her legs and her legs. And, or, if she does something sexual, like a seductive dance, which I've mentioned can be done by a Muslim woman who is naked or completely clothed. I have mentioned hijabi Muslim women who also dress very inappropriately and do very sexual dances. So you know where I stand on hijab and what women can wear in Islam and what they can't wear. Modesty varies from culture and time, but modesty always includes the idea that women's chests and vaginas and bottoms are arousing areas for men, and this is what they need to cover. So I don't understand why I came across Muslim women on Facebook who are essentially whoring themselves out, prostituting their own bodies, showing off their chests, showing off their legs, showing off their bottoms. There's a verse in the Quran, it's um chapter 49 verse 12. It talks about we Muslims can never make how we should always avoid making negative assumptions about other Muslims, how we shouldn't be suspicious or backbite or judge other Muslims. But we can judge the act. We can judge them overall, but we can judge the act. The thing is that this verse, it doesn't apply, it gets waived when Muslim men and women on Facebook, when they openly show themselves living very sinful lifestyles, when they're openly taking part in activities that go against our religion. Like, there's no gray area, it openly goes against our religion. Yeah, sometimes I keep thinking if it would have been so much better if the parents of these Muslim friends of mine, whom by the way, their parents are often friends with my parents. I keep thinking if it was better if they never came to Canada. I live in Canada, if you didn't know that. Because their kids would have still had some kind of attachment to Islam and their Muslim culture. Quick note, I'm not talking about Muslim countries that are already secularized. So when Muslim immigrants from these secular Muslim countries, when they come and immigrate to the West, their lifestyle doesn't change. I'm not talking about these Muslim countries. They're already lost. They're already a lost cause. I'm talking about, for example, South Asia, like Muslims from Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. I resonate more because I am from the South Asian culture. The South Asian culture has Islam heavily built into the culture, and Muslims from South Asia tend to be more religious than other Muslim countries. So it's the pain is stronger when I see my own people from South Asia, which already has a good, religious foundation built into the culture. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, but there is a motorcycle going around. I'm sitting in my car. It's after Jummah making this video. So, yeah, I am a little biased. I do obviously resonate a lot more with my South Asian culture. Um, so when I see people of my own, heritage, when they're openly sinning, it hurts a little more. Yeah, so people from Pakistan, Muslims from India, when they become whitewashed and liberalized and secularized in the West, it hurts more because, we already come from a good religious background back home. There's no reason for us to abandon our religious identity. I just hated seeing so many pretty and beautiful Muslim girls on Facebook whom were either who were friends who were on the accounts of my Muslim friends, because I said, Facebook hopping, profile hopping is something we all do out of boredom or curiosity or whatnot. I hated seeing so many how beautiful and pretty they were, and then they just whore themselves out on Facebook, showing off their bodies. It's obvious that they were under the influence of their non-Muslim friends who made them like this. And sometimes, yeah, your own Muslim friends can also make you very whitewashed and secularized and live very openly sinful lifestyles. That also happens. I'll explain a little bit later. I swear, sometimes my non-Muslim friends on Facebook turn out to be better Muslims than my own Muslim friends. Many times they knew about when I used to hang around with them. They knew what not to talk about around me. They knew how not to hang out or what not to say, what not to eat, what not to drink. They knew about that because they knew I was Muslim out of respect. That's a great thing. But many of my Muslim friends didn't hold back. They didn't hold back on the dirty talk. They didn't hold back on the alcohol. They didn't hold back about talking about drugs and uh, their girlfriends. So this is really an example how Muslim friends they can influence you to live a very sinful lifestyle and abandon your Islamic upbringing. Well, when I was in high school, there were I knew there were Muslims who um who drank and did drugs and had girlfriends. And unfortunately, some of my own more religious Muslim friends, they got influenced by them and they became just like them. They also became, they also started drinking, also started having girlfriends. Sometimes your own Muslim friends are, not the best for you. They can whitewash you, they can secularize you, they can westernize you. Sometimes you are better off hanging out with non-Muslim friends, provided they don't take you to bars, nightclubs, and stuff like that. This, you know, this one is, um, this one's a little more personal, I guess. There was a Muslim girl. She was friends with my older sister, and she was my age, and she went to my high school, and her parents were close with my parents. She was very good looking, very attractive, very beautiful. And she would always dress, in a very modest manner. She would never wear anything tight or revealing or short. She would never show off her chest. She would never show off her bottom, never show off her legs. And um, she would, at school, she would sometimes break during class and go and quickly pray, while many of us didn't do that. We would stay in class. So she was very intelligent, very beautiful, and you can see, she was religious too. She was Pakistani. She was of Pakistani descent. Didn't wear hijab, but I get that, but that's fine because, as I've mentioned many times already, hijab hasn't been in the Indo-Pakistani culture well before the British colonizers came. Yet at the same time, they do hold Islam very dearly. So she was just another average Pakistani girl, you know, holding Islam, dearly, which is great. And she was very intelligent. She got into med school in the US. She got into med school, and I didn't have her on Facebook, but my older sister did, and I would, often like to go on her profile. And then what happened was a few years went by, and at that time, my older sister and I, we used to share a laptop, and she didn't log out of her Facebook account. So yeah, I went on it, and I went on this Muslim girl that I'm talking about. I went on her profile because, as I said, she was friends with my older sister. Just to see how she is, because it's been a few years. I wanted to see, what she's up to. And so yeah, she was doing med school in the US, and I go on her profile, and my heart just sank. She could have been, she could have been, arranged into marriage to me, possibly. I don't know, but it could have happened because our families were close, and we were the same age. But yeah, seeing her profile when she was in the US, she completely changed. That modest, innocent girl that she was, it was all gone. It was so upsetting seeing her photos, how she became, her modest dressing, the way she used to dress, it was gone. She started showing off her chest, showing off her cleavage, wearing very short and tight clothes. There were pictures of her being at nightclubs and bars. So yeah, when I saw this, seeing a potential future wife, seeing this, it was just a complete shock. It was so disheartening. My heart sank. Seeing how she went from, you can see her older photos, how she was, just a normal Muslim girl. And she turned into this. Just disappointing, it was so sad. But that brings me back to my whole point. I had to block all my Muslim friends off Facebook because I did not want to come across any Muslims. I didn't want to go through that spiritual crisis, that disappointment, that anger and sadness of seeing your own fellow Muslim abandon their Islamic identity, the Islamic identity that their ancestors had for 1400 years, and it's gone. They abandoned it. They became whitewashed and secularized and westernized. And as I said, they're the Muslims I never thought who would change for the worst, who were more religious than I could ever be. And look what happened. Another loud car going by. It comes as a shock. Your heart sinks. It's disappointing. It's sad. How, when it comes to a digital life, when it comes to social media, like Facebook, it's like they they forget that they're Muslim. They forget what Islam stands for, what Islam teaches them. I don't have Instagram. I don't have TikTok, but I assume that it's very similar. If I did have both of those, I would probably have to block, my Muslim friends off as well. Like, you don't want to see that side of Muslims. You don't want to see that side of your friends. If they do have it, then they're supposed to keep it private, completely hidden away where no one can know about it. As I'm doing this video, I got a notification on my phone saying you might know this person. And I go on it, and it's a Muslim. We have many mutual friends in common. And a quick look at his profile, and yeah, same thing. Not even surprising anymore. Profile picture of him at a nightclub. And we have quite a few mutual friends in common. My Because I blocked off all my non-Muslim friends, excuse me, because I blocked off all of my Muslim friends, the mutual friend list is smaller, but he is friends with a lot of my non-Muslim friends. You know what? That just tells, I should probably just completely close my Facebook account. I hardly log on anyways. I'm hardly on there. Um, but it just gets too much. Yeah, I can't reiterate this enough. Like, how can Muslims who are more religious than me, who were more religious than I could ever be, who were close to me, how can they just completely abandon their Islamic lifestyle? How is it possible for them to put down the Quran and pick up a glass of alcohol? How is it possible for these Muslim girls to have their chests covered and legs covered, and then just a few photos later, it's completely exposed? I'm sitting in the parking lot of my mosque. I'm recording this video after Jummah, and it's going to be Asr soon, Asr prayer, and the parking lot is starting to fill up. And I'm seeing, obviously a lot of Muslims going into the entrance. But it is so sad how I just know that some of them are gonna abandon their Islamic lifestyle. I don't know how there is literally a bar across from Masjid. I don't know how this planning happened, but that's foreshadowing right there. I'm seeing so many young Muslim kids right here. And I know, unfortunately, at least some of them are going to be, instead of going to this masjid, they're going to be going across to the bar. I can see literally Muslim girls here wearing hijab. And I know, unfortunately, some of them are going to they're going to shed their clothes. I see some Pakistani Indian Muslim women here too who aren't covering their heads, but they're still covered properly. But I know that unfortunately either they or their children, unfortunately, are gonna shed their clothes. It's such a terrible time we're living in right now. There's so much fitna going around, and it's like right in front of us. We're seeing the gradual decline, the slow spiritual suicide of so many Muslims, putting social media aside just right in front of you.